Hi, I'm so glad that you chose to join me here this week for the Cool Grandpa podcast. Before I introduce our guest, I want to remind you that I've got Buy Me a Coffee. It's a great way that you can support me, support the show by just a small donation. It really helps me out. And again, that's buymeacoffee.com. And I've got a link on the website and in the show notes. So it's really easy. So if you feel inclined, I'd love to have your support for this podcast about grandfathers and the importance of grandfathers in the lives of grandchildren and families in general. I also want to remind you, too, that Grandparents Academy is coming up here in September. So this is a free celebration of grandparents. And what this is done is being provided by Grandparents Academy. And so Grandparents Week is a all-week celebration about how special you are in terms of providing leadership and love to your family. So please check out the show notes or go to grandparentsacademy.com, sign up for Grandparents Week, and I know you're going to enjoy this awesome celebration. Now, I also want to remind you, too, that I've got a course over at Grandparents Academy called Intentional Grandfather. This is a great course, especially for new grandfathers. I go over kind of what the history of being a grandfather has been. I talk about the important struggles and challenges that our grandchildren and our communities are facing and how you can help them overcome and manage these challenges. And I also want to celebrate you, the awesome grandfather, about you being intentional about being involved in your grandchildren's lives and the lives of kids in your community. Now, Dr. Karen Stillman is on. Now, Karen is from Baby Making Genius. She's got all sorts of experience as a real-life OBGYN, and she's also now working with women in a more holistic approach to overcoming some of the challenges of fertility. You are going to love this. This is an important conversation. It really helped educate me, and I know it's going to help educate you on some of the struggles that our adult daughters or our daughter-in-laws may be going through. We especially cover some of those things like what not to say to somebody that might be going through this particular challenge in their lives. So this is an awesome conversation, and without further ado, let's jump into a fantastic discussion with Dr. Karen Stillman. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the Cool Grandpa podcast. I'm excited to have you on for this conversation.
Hi, Greg. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
This is going to be something that's really different from what my normal topics and subjects are, but it's so important. And it was something that I'm glad we got together to talk about it. And that is fertility and thing that's going on with our adult daughters or our daughter-in-laws or just even people that we work with and know.
Exactly. Thank you.
Now, I'd love to have you start out and give us a brief introduction of yourself, and then how did you jump in and become an OBGYN?
Well, thanks, Greg. What I'm doing right now is I'm fertility mentor coaching women who struggle with their fertility, especially those women who are over 35, because they feel that emotional roller coaster, that ticking time bomb about to go off that has been society and medical has been promoting, and therefore it's just filtering down to every day, every time life. And I decided to do this after I was an OBGYN for over a dozen years. I did go into medicine because when I was in grade 10 in a biology class, I heard this voice. We were learning about cell division. One cell becomes two, but if it's gametes, so sperm and eggs, one cell becomes four because it needs half that chromosome content. A little bit of a science biology thing there, but I was in biology class and I heard in my left ear, you're going to be an obstetrician gynecologist. Not you're going to be a doctor, not you're going to do research. It was very, very specific. And so I just arranged my high school electives, went to university, did all the right courses, applied to medical school, got in, and voila, after the 12 years of post-secondary education, was licensed to practice and went out, started my own office. And I practiced for a dozen years until I got sick. Great work, great service, loved what I did, loved the patients, loved helping women with all sorts of things. I was a general OBGYN, so delivering babies, infertility, menopause, other girly things, little girly things, doing surgeries. I just so loved it. But that work sometimes takes its toll on your life. And I got so sick, so I had to take a few steps back. And when I did and got my health regained, it was such a long time frame that they wanted me to recertify.
Wow.
Go back and just 4 or 5 more years of phone call to get back to where I was. And it's like, no, been there, done that. I cut the t-shirt. What's next? So it just took some time, figured out what I wanted to do. And it's evolved to what I'm doing today.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think too, I was reading on the website a little bit where you also went in to study like yoga practices and some other
Absolutely.
things.
While I was taking my time off to regain my health, I was using all sorts of allied healthcare modalities. So I was looking at the things that were not just traditional medicine, because really, to be honest, Greg, the traditional medicine stuff wasn't resolving my thyroid challenges. More and more drugs to get me feeling better. And I really wasn't feeling better. I was on mega doses, switched to this drug, switched to another drug. It's like, why is this not working? Same with when I stopped work because of the health, and then I had more trouble sleeping and on sleep aids, and doctors said I'm going to be on these pills for the rest of my life. And it's like, and so I looked at all the other things that I could do to improve my health and wellness. So I went to India, did yoga teacher training for 7 weeks, totally immersed myself in this Ayurvedic training. So we learned about the diet as well as the yoga. The whole practice in India, it's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And it was just super fantastic to do it all condensed at one time. I followed that trip away for the training with going to Italy and doing a little bit of a holiday before I did my third silent meditation retreat. So I have the Vipassana training for meditation, and I love sharing some of those pearls with women. So 10 days of no talking, absolutely not. No sign language communication. You learn a meditation process, and if you have questions about your accommodations or your health or things along the way, there's a preceptor proper to talk to, but otherwise there's no talking. And it was fantastic. And then I walked a Camino de Santiago de Compostela, and I tell you, it's just such a joy. Sometimes it still brings tears to my eyes for how joy-filled I was walking alone as a 47-year-old woman over almost 900 kilometers from the south of France through northern Spain to meet up at Santiago. It's a pilgrimage, originally a religious type of pilgrimage. The St. James Way is the way I walked, but there's a variety of different routes. But I walked a few more days and ended up on the west coast of Spain, which borders on the Atlantic Ocean, in a place called Fistera, which in English is the end of the earth. And it was just so fantastic. I learned so much about myself when I was gone those 3.5 months, and I regained so much health and wellness. My spirit blossomed. I came back rejuvenated. I was off the thyroid medications, didn't need any sleep drugs. And after back for a while, things settle out. You got to come back to the real world of paying bills and doing appointments and figuring out what I'm going to do for work. So a few little ups and downs, but I have maintained, and I am prescription medication free. I have amazing health. I feel great. And it's a testament back to, when I had my fertility challenges while I was in training, what I did now and what I'm doing now and how I came about to get my health back are the same principles that I did then, but more expanded. And I added in a coach training so that I could, even though I had a lot of medical information and knowledge and background, just to make sure that I could serve clients really, really well. Having a heart-centered practice, I'm a great listener. It's one of my superpowers. It's one of my super skills. And just, I think as well, a lot of people will say, former patients, clients, you're a great listener. You're so calm. You don't judge me. I can just feel like I'm safe with you. I can pour out my heart to you. And that's what I love. And that's why I love what I do.
That's awesome. And it sounds like too is along the way with some of these other practices that you were involved in, that also leads to a level of detachment where
Yes,
you're not, we all get emotionally charged about certain things,
absolutely.
but that silence and that reflection and everything else, it sounds like that has really benefited you and your patients.
Absolutely. Getting the story out, your history is when you go to the medical office. History in the word has story. Your story oftentimes becomes people's drama that they nurse and rehearse, and it just becomes such a curse. And it's getting over that, because the problem is never the problem. The problem is the thinking about the problem. And not to belittle that events do happen, challenges occur, and there are things that you may not love to have had happen to you or with you or through you, but it's how you deal with it. And so I help women, because they don't come in thinking, I need to be more relaxed, I need to be more confident, I need to get my mindset set. They're in kind of like, what can you do? And I just help them get there with a variety of different things. So whatever your needs are, when you come in the door, I just work with that to start off with, and then I sprinkle in the love of all the other pieces. And then you walk out the door feeling, I believe this can happen now.
Well, and it's interesting because that reminds me of so many of the different stories that I've heard of couples and women that are so stressed about trying to become pregnant and trying that at a certain point it seems like it's funny because and I'm laughing, and it kind of is funny and it's kind of not, but
Yeah.
it's like as soon as you kind of give up and relax, then it's like 3 months later they're pregnant. And
Letting go has a great effect, but that's not something that you should tell them. It's not something that that's kind of unsolicited advice. So if you were to ask me what are some of the things that you wouldn't say to somebody versus some of the things you should say to somebody, saying that really, even though there's a lot of truth in it, they're not at a point where they're open to hearing that. So conversations need to be approached differently depending on who you are having those conversations with people. It's if stress can make you sick, I mean, some of the not so common causes and are now coming into the medical literature, obesity, hypertension. Well, those things are caused a lot oftentimes by stress. So if the stress factor can make you sick, those sicknesses can impact your reproductive tract. The happiness factor, the relaxing, letting go factor, when you raise that up, it can just wipe the rest of it away for a clean slate. And then you can turn on that natural baby making genius. That's why I call my program and my site what I do. So we can turn on what's naturally in you. It's innate, meaning it's you are born with it. And we just have smeared a lot of stressors and other events and things that we think are important on top of it. If you have the body parts, you can do it. Now, yes, women go through a time frame where they can't. There's no doubt about that. But it's not at age 35. It's not at age 40. It's when you are menopausal, which can be another 10, 15, 20 years later.
oh
So
yeah.
there's lots more time available to women. But there's a lot of society, media pressure, and other things that are that ticking time bomb of stress. And it's just, you blow too much air in that balloon. What does it do? It pops.
Mhm. No, exactly. And this is a great way to also get into having you talk to us briefly about some of the common and not so common reasons people may find it difficult to become pregnant.
Absolutely. Well, the commonest thing when you go to assessment or looking at your own health and wellness is people focus on health and medicine. So they look at what health conditions they have. They get investigated for, is the anatomy right? Are the tubes blocked? Are their hormones functioning right? Do they have another medical condition like diabetes or something else that has been associated with lower fertility rates or recurrent pregnancy loss? So repeated miscarriages with or without a formal diagnosis. So all those things medically in your history that can be associated with that. So it's in your family history, it's with your past surgical medical history. People even say, well, it's in my genetics, it's in my genes, And so, if I have this problem or this issue, and really that blueprint, that history, that story, all the stuff that happened to you up until this point where you take this breath, this moment while you're listening to this podcast, probably only accumulates and accounts for 20% of why you're not getting pregnant. Although, 15% of women, depending on where you live, it could be as low as 10 in some countries, as high as 20 in others, but about 15% of women. So if you know 6 women, one of them has struggled with infertility. And so these are the causes that they're looking at, and they're focused on the testing and what's going on. So when you focus on the problem, you get more of the problem. And so that's why I like to, yes, I help them realize where they're at, acknowledge where they are. There's truth and fact about where they are, but that doesn't mean that's where they need to stay. And so I help them realize that they're more than that. So we can move through, thinking about the problem and the problem, because whatever your doctor has labeled you with, it is a fact, and they're learner people. And it is very helpful then to know, so then you know what it is that you can work on to let go.
Sure. Yeah. Because I think you need the medical knowledge. To your point, there may be something physically that needs to be
Absolutely.
adjusted. But then, too, when you start to, like you said, your mind starts wrapping around that, and it's like, I've got this problem, so that's why this isn't happening, and you start getting in a little bit of a vicious cycle there.
Yeah, and they worry about the why, and why me, and how come me. And that's like going to a filing cabinet to look at the answers. You're not going to get them. It's connecting to the bigger reason, because if you stop for a moment, let's take a breath together. And if you're calm and you notice your heartbeat, when you woke up this morning, you didn't say, turn my heartbeat on or off. There is a consciousness greater than you or me that's creating this, whether you believe in God or the universe or the unified field or just quantum physics, source energy, however you'd like to describe that. There is a consciousness that is, keeping you alive. There's other factors that medicine can explain, but it's interesting if we go down that road of medicine can explain some things and uses old science to get there. We use new science, quantum physics science, for a couple of investigations, but we don't use it with our whole medical approach. And that's what I do. I work with your mindset and your thinking so that you can overcome any challenge and create that family that you would love to have.
Oh, that's well said. And I like that idea too of that holistic approach to it, that it's not just hey, you go in, you have a broken ankle, we're fixing the ankle, but then there's maybe some other things going on about why did the ankle break?
Well,
What
exactly.
were you doing? Are you somebody that engages in risky behavior? And so, yeah,
Exactly.
when you jump
Yeah,
off
you don't just want to have a Band-Aid effect because they're continually cutting your hand. Why is the hand continually being cut? Because you can put on a Band-Aid repeatedly, but let's get to the root cause. And not that medicine isn't great and wonderful, because there are certainly a lot of people who have had great success. And I've enjoyed a lot of the time that I did practice and the things that I was able to help couples and women do, and the deliveries that happened, and, deliveries that they also would love to have rather than by emergency C-section and all sorts of other things. But there's also a time where that's just not going to be helpful. And if you look at the IVF, the in vitro fertilization, artificial reproductive technologies, as you batch them into a whole category of specialized techniques for fertility, for women 35 to 39, they work maybe up to 20%. If you're 40 and over, best case scenario, maybe you might find a clinic a little bit better than single digits, but you're looking at 10% or less effective. And if IVF are going to be the route that's going to make a difference, and if medicine could fix everything, why is the success rate not at least even 25%, which is, the luck of the draw, the chances. Placebo effect of taking a sugar pill, or, you can't do those studies anymore with sham surgeries and what have you. Statistics show what other health-related aspects, even with cancer, when people were taking long ago, not the treatment, and they were comparing one medication versus nothing. Now they compare one medication versus another, that there's a success of somewhere between 20 and 75%. And depending on what's going on. So IVF should have a higher success rate if it's actually going to be the be all and end all. And obviously, then it's not an opener when you're talking to your friends and family members or your daughters, if your dad or grandpa, that, well, why don't you just do IVF? Because it may not be the answer. It can be. For some people, it will be the first and the next step. And the support that I provide still may need additional assistance, depending. So I wouldn't knock it, but it's definitely not a first line treatment, because there's lots of involved, there's side effects. And when they tell you that the success rate is that low, one thing I remember often from women in my office when we are explaining and giving informed consent for a medication, a procedure, a test, a treatment, a surgery, you need to let them know the pros and the cons and the success rate. Well, I'm going to have that. The negatives. If people get 20% nausea from this, I'm going to be one of those people. Well, now you're thinking and believing and leaning into the negative. Why would you do that? And the reason we do that is, as humans, we're programmed to look out for the negative. So it's not your fault. One piece is, it's not your fault that we are designed as humans to be fearful of floods, fire, danger, the saber-toothed tiger, the dinosaur that's going to, eat us alive. You want to run when you see the bear, that kind of stuff. But now it's our bills, traffic, and all sorts of other things that just make those stress levels rise. And there's so many ways and techniques to alleviate that. And I just help them and open up their awareness to that. Besides all the other stuff, we don't drink a lot of water. We don't stop often to breathe well. And the variety of a few other things that you can do with movement and what you do eat, vitamins, all the other supports and things. But the biggest thing is that space that's between your ears, and it's what you're thinking about.
That's interesting. I want to get into some of that in a little bit, about how we go through, I guess, that marrying, or the marrying up of the practice, the medical practice, and then the mindset and everything else. But I am curious first, is there any data that shows that infertility rates are going up, or is it something that's just more discussed?
The infertility rate overall globally is going up. Women have been delaying childbirth. There's more stress to think about in your life. However, when you look back to the Great Depression, major famines in different countries, women still had babies. So it's not insurmountable. And one thing that we've done now more over the last few decades is we're all about the numbers. We're data driven. We're research driven. And I switched from that allopathic Western model of random, double, triple blind control trials to get a result to let that go. Whether that's good or not, what do I need right now within? If you look for a statistic, you're going to find it. If you want to find an article or a paper or something that says the sky is turquoise with flashing green lights, you're probably going to find it, right? So, but is it the be all and end all? No, it's not. But we are talking about a lot more because women are more open. Conversations, communication has allowed us to be able to access people. I mean, I'm up in Canada, you're down in the States. 100 years ago, that didn't happen except for like a long, wagon ride.
Right. Well,
and I'm on Newfoundland, so there'd also be a big boat ride. So it would take months for us to connect. And we have greater access to communication. And there's benefits to that, but there's also the flip side of the negatives, because you can use Dr. Google and find anything you want, and you can go down a rabbit hole of information. But when you're going down the rabbit hole of information, are you in the land of solution, or are you still looking at the problem? And what is your attachment to the problem? It started off about, when you feel emotionally attached, it could be positive or negative. I would love high emotion, positive, but is for what kind of outcome? Or I gotta get pregnant. I need to get pregnant. It's that addictive craving as well, but for the positive, but it's a negative. It's a lack environment that you're creating. So there's ways to work with what you think, because there's a relationship of how you think, what you think. We receive information, we give off information, and that information gets translated in our body through the vibrations and through our nervous system. Our cerebral spinal fluid vibrates because it's a nice liquid, and we emote, we have feelings and emotions, and then based on how you feel, how those emotions are, you take an action step, or you don't. Or you take an action step that's not good for you, or you take one that is good for you, and then that will lead to your results. But if you're not aware, until you know that you are 100% responsible for the events in your life, so if you don't like your results, that's okay. It's not your fault. But now that you're aware, you can take that responsibility 100% and drive it in the direction of what you would love.
Love that. Along with that, what do you find are some of the pressures with becoming pregnant, and whether those that want to become pregnant are successful or not? Do you find a lot of that is internal, or do you find a lot of that is also external, or a combination?
It's a combination, but what women notice first is all the external stuff, because it's kind of in your face. My analogy is, when you think about it, when couples got married, or if you're going on a holiday, how much time do you spend organizing, thinking, looking at what you would love, where you'd love to go, how you get there? You may not look at the specific airline, you may look at the price, but you do a lot of organizing. And women for their weddings do a lot of organizing. Couples combined, however, not to let the partners off the hook or out of the way. But a lot of people will spend infinitely more time organizing those two types of events in their life than they look at what otherwise is important to them with their health, their core values and beliefs, with how I'm living, how I'm working, what my job is. Yes, I felt I had a calling to obstetrics and gynecology in grade 10. And then when I got sick, I did a really full 360 look around as to what about this is important to me. Why did this work for so long? And then what came into the way as to why it wasn't working? And so we need to turn on our thinking instead of just getting onto that roller coaster of being pushed around and letting ourselves be jostled, because our bodies and our minds will naturally take that path of least resistance. And sometimes it's, oh, woe is me. Oh, this has happened. Gosh, no. Everybody else in my family got pregnant. I guess I'm the one who's not going to, or why am I the one to struggle and worry and be upset about that, instead of, me too, I can do that too. And then what could I do to make that happen? We lean into that negative stuff because the statistics show 80-85% of our thinking is negative, and 80-85 or more percent of our thinking is repetitive. Those aren't good odds. But you can change that because you have the power. And I help women take their power back so that they can advocate for themselves, have those great conversations with their doctors, have those great conversations with themselves, and raise that level of awareness, and turn on that ability so that they can, have the health that they would love, that they are not the set of circumstances. They're not their genetics. Just because you have a label, a protein, a gene, or missing something. Some miscarriages and some infertility are associated with a genetic abnormality. But that doesn't have to be the one that affects you, because you can change that. Epigenetics is a whole new study on how your genes can be modified, because there is that different level of consciousness that allows that to be turned on or not. And I've seen it in my practice. I've had women in my practice who've had the breast cancer gene. I had one lady who had both of the breast cancer genes. Her daughter developed it, and the reason why she knew about it was because her daughter had recurrent miscarriages and was having genetic testing. So mom and dad had genetic testing. And when the mom, the older woman in my practice, both of them were clients actually, she said at 67, I have these genes. I don't have time for breast cancer. Whatever. She was a going concern. She has outlived her daughter because of a different mindset and approach to how life was going to happen.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful stuff. It's just incredible how the mindset and all that works. And again, it works in conjunction with the medicine. You can't just
Oh,
wish
absolutely.
things
I'm
away.
not here to poo-poo medicine and to poo-poo anything. It absolutely has its place. I mean, if you have blocked tubes and you can't sit there and meditate to unblock your tubes, then you have the awareness to know what can you do,
Right.
who do you see, what are the costs, what do I need to do to, if I don't have easy access to that financial, don't let that be a stressor. What else can I do? What is the next step? What action can I take? So being in that land of solution and finding and leaning into instead of, oh, I have blocked tubes. This is just not going to happen for me. That happened because of this event in my past history, or, heaven forbid that someone, says to you, oh, God didn't, mean for you to have a baby. That's why you have this problem or challenge. That higher power also gave you the opportunity to go online and find someone to help you and see what else is out there and, work with you so that you can have that ultimate healing effect by working with what you think about so you can take the action steps, because the thinking alone is not going to happen.
Right. Well,
make all those shifts. I can't sit here and meditate, being on, a Caribbean island because it's, it's still cold here in Newfoundland today, and make that happen. I can meditate as to how am I going to get there? Where am I going to go? Having the money to get there, buying the airline ticket. So, there's the pieces in between that you have great access to.
Well, and I think too, it's having that positive mindset going into the treatment, whatever it is, and hey, this is going to work. We're going to do it, and you
absolutely
you go in with that.
And it's I look at it in three ways. It's your intention, because if you intend to get pregnant, that's your desire, and you're focusing on that, and you're leaning into more of the positive. The negative will happen. Challenges, that's how, everything was designed. Challenges are here to help you grow. What am I going to learn from that? And your intention to have a baby. The second one is, though, your attention. What are you putting your focus on? So I want to have a baby. I'm doing this, but I'm not eating healthy. I'm not taking time to breathe well. I don't drink enough water. Well, your dainty, beautiful little tubes and fimbriae want to catch that ovary that has been released properly because your hormonal balance is working right, because you're well hydrated. If not, your primary, freeze, fight, flight organs are heart, lungs, and muscles. I've got to run away. I got to go fast, or I'm going to freeze and stop and, drop, let the bear go by and, hopefully not maul me to death. Versus, that's not when you stop to fornicate and have a baby, right? Like, so there's primary, secondary, and tertiary aspects. So the reproductive tract wants to turn on, but it has to feel safe. Well, you don't intend for it to feel unsafe, but if you're not focusing your attention on doing things to make it feel loved and appreciated, then that's important. So intention, attention, and the third one, you mentioned it earlier, is expectation. And I've had many people when I talk about that, because, oh, no, you got to let go of those expectations, because if you don't let go of the expectation, then, when you let go, it'll happen. And it's like, of course it won't. You let go of your attachment to the how, the expectation is still going to be there. So you let go of, it's going to happen naturally. I'm going to use IVF. I'm going to do 1. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do 3. But you still expect that result. So attention, intention, and your expectation. That's the triple whammy for success.
That's awesome. I love that. I do want to ask you though, where is a place, or is there a place for fathers and grandfathers in this process or discussion? Because I feel like this is more of the women go and talk about this stuff, and
some women do, yeah. But you've heard the phrase "daddy's little girl." Now I have had up and down relationship with my dad. So when I was having challenges, my mom was my rock. My mom was my go-to, even though she was actually in cancer treatments when that year and a half, almost 2 years, we were struggling. But she was the go-to person who reminded me of what I needed to do. Dads actually have a huge role. So, and you don't know, like for some women, some girls, that block is they didn't have a great relationship with their mom. Mom wasn't around, whatever other reason that there's not great motherly role model. And not that it had to be the perfect role model. You could have had an amazing mother, but there's one event in your life that sticks out in your head where she didn't mean to, but embarrassed you. She knocked your purse over. You were 14. The pads and tampons fell out and somebody else laughed, and she didn't really instigate it, but she accidentally, how you felt about, for example, that event may have a negative impact that you don't know, because your whole body is eavesdropping on every aspect of your life. So if you have a father in your life, a grandfather in your life, if there's someone to talk to, maybe you're not going to reach out to them, but dads and grandpas, if you have any relationship with those women in your life, and they're married, you're not sure, they haven't had kids yet, or you've heard, maybe she's miscarried, or, they're struggling, your best piece of advice is just to be that loving, gentle grandpa, dad that you have inside you, just to take a moment to ask in a calm, gentle way at a time when there's no other stress, as best you can. Hey, Anna, you guys, been married for 5 years, and I just want to know, is everything okay? You guys thought about kids? And is there anything I can do to support you? Because all you want to do is shower them with love. Let them know and remind them that you are a safe place to chat. If you haven't been to date, start building that relationship, because you could be one of the best tools to help move them where they need to go. Because a woman who's struggling with their fertility can't have enough supporters. The more the merrier. It's the phrase, the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. I like to look at that a few steps back. It takes a village to support the couple so they can get pregnant, have the child that they all raise together, so that that girl and those boys can do the same thing and repeat and repeat and repeat. So grandpa, dad, you could be key. You could be a key factor. It's just wait for that opportunity. If you can create it, that's great. But it's the loving, the quiet, the support, the grace. Don't try and approach it as funny, because that will fall flat. I wouldn't bring God into it unless you really do have a very spiritual relationship with the higher power that you have a label to, and that you can bring that into that conversation as a group, how that would work for you. But, maybe God didn't mean for you to do that. It's not a phrase to say, your health could be better, at least you don't have cancer. Like phrases like that, the relax phrase, even though that would be helpful for her to get into that space, you saying that, dad or grandpa, it's going to fall flat.
Right.
Just pour on the love.
Oh, that's awesome advice. I'd love for you, because throughout this we've talked about how you work with your clients, but I'd love for you to talk to us about how women are finding you, and talk to us a little bit at a high level, or give some examples if that's appropriate, about how you typically work with the women that find you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my website is thebabymakinggenius.com. So there's some information on there. There's a place to click on and find. I'll talk to every woman who decides to press that button and book an appointment, you can get a 15, usually ends up being 20 to 30 minutes phone call with me. So just to see what's going on, to see where you're at, to see if there's something that I could help you with. I'm growing my Instagram. Social media is not where I've come from. I'm not of that era. Although on my Camino, when I was in India, I did use Facebook to let people know I was alive, slowly leaning into some of the stuff. So my Instagram handle is Believe to Conceive. And my WhatsApp is also, you can send me a text and said, I heard about you. You help people get pregnant. Send me that message. I will message back with the booking link so we can have a formal time and we can pick something that works with your time frame and my availability. And my WhatsApp number is 613-314-9802. So if you're calling outside of that local, it's a 1-613-314-9802. And the regular old email also as well, Stillman at womensdr.com can get me, and I'm sure you'll put all that stuff in the notes at the end. But my vision is that every woman who desires to have a baby can and does. Because you don't just want to dream about having a baby, you actually want to hold that baby in your arms. Because I know what it's like. I went through that struggle myself. I was 1.5 years, and it was a horrible challenge. And there I was in the obstetrics and gynecology medical training program. I had access to these people and these tests, and other residents, let's scan you. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take a free scan. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's get this done. And for 1.5 years, I still struggled. And I went home to visit my mom and dad, married almost 2 years. And it's tearing my life apart. It's tearing my relationship apart. And I'm angry and feeling hopeless because I'm designed to have babies. Why can't I? Like, what's wrong? We always think about what's wrong. And when I went home, Mom reminded me, and I knew in the back of my head, I had a surgery when I was 13. And that doctor looked at me and looked at Mom and said, she's going to struggle to get pregnant. I had a normal appendix removed, but I had one of my fallopian tubes was all rotted, dying. The technical term is necrotic. He couldn't explain to me why. Didn't know when it happened or started. I just woke up one day in acute pain and went to the emergency room and had the surgery. And at the 6-week follow-up, that's what he said. She's going to struggle to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And I carried that with me. But what Mom reminded me of was in the car ride on the way home. Darling, do you remember what you said about him? I had no clue. And there's Mom in our conversation, hands on her hips, imitating Karen at 13, because I was in grade 8 when this happened. No one, Mommy, not even him, is going to tell me I can't have my 2 babies, a boy first and a girl second, just like you.
Yeah.
I cried. I cried when she said that. It was like the light bulb went off. I remembered the dream of always wanting to have babies. I knew I was called to have babies. Felt it deep into my soul, and that's one of the reasons a lot of women say they want to have children. They can't explain it otherwise. And all the stuff that I was doing medically to manage my baby making, I just had decided in that moment, you're right. I'm just going to let that stuff go. And so I went home, and then in the next 3 months, I spent more time up to my water, maybe a little bit more exercise, a little bit of the healthy eating diet. But really what I focused on was having fun, spending time with my partner, having sex because we just wanted to. Can I have sex? Can I say sex on your show? I'm sorry. So we just, had fun whenever we wanted to. It wasn't the plan. It wasn't the timing. It was let go of all of the other calendars, hormone levels, checking, peeing on sticks. Let all that stuff go. 3 months later, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
And the same thing when Jacob was 2. And we talked about, should we, shouldn't we? When are we going to do the next one? 6 weeks later, baby number 2. And she popped out like there was no tomorrow. So it was fantastic. So I had my boy first and my girl second, just like I had always dreamed of.
Wow. Wow.
And I've helped several women in my medical practice. A lot of my clients in my medical practice, especially with that heart-centered approach, yes, you've got whatever going on. Listen to your story. Let's do the proper investigations based on timings and things. Yes, I'm going to make the referral to your appointment for the fertility clinic at the specialist there and see what's going on. But in Canada, there's a different lag time. It's a different system in the States, but it's getting all those pieces of the puzzle. And what would happen? They'd come back after different tests. We'd go over these results, and I'd sit down and look at them and talk to them. I'd move away from being behind my desk taking notes. And, if they're there crying upset, hold their hand, like sit next to them, put my arm around them. Stuff that really is not encouraged in medical school. People need love and support and connection. And tell them we're doing all the right things. Breathe with me. Just let some of that go. And you go home. Don't give it a second thought. I know you want this. We have all the things in place to help move things along. And you are just going to, as best you can, enjoy your life right now. And if you need another appointment before that fertility specialist appointment, you just book back. Well, do I need another referral? How do I do that? You just call my secretary and you book back in. And that's the basics that I brought into my coaching practice. But a lot of my clients, a lot of my patients went to their fertility appointments pregnant, or before they even had treatments. They were just there and having the second set of workup if there was a lead time delay for whatever Canada health reasons, regulations, timings. Doing more investigations. Oh, but back again for their second follow-up with the fertility specialist. Pregnant. Didn't do anything. Pregnant. And it's fantastic. Another client of mine especially had a couple of miscarriages, was really, really upset. They were in their mid-30s, 35 and 37. 2 years of working with her. She's very high-strung, major worry wart, a different setup in my medical practice than now seeing me through the coaching. There's a lot more availability to see me versus the other. And it did take 2 years, but she worked through all the stuff that I worked with her with. She never went to the fertility clinic. That wasn't an option that they wanted to undertake for personal reasons, but they have their miracle baby and they love her to bits. And they named their daughter after the two aunts and her doctor. So she's got a made up name, so to speak, but it has part of Karen in it. So it's a really lovely joy to be able to have that kind of impact on somebody. And it's just love to serve. Like, women, if you really feel that you want to have a baby and it's just that deep desire, it's in your head and you just would love to hold that baby, I just want to help you.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming too that you meet with people remotely, that not everybody has to go to Newfoundland.
Zoom has made my life so much easier that I can serve so many people. Currently have a lady in Nigeria. She makes the afternoon calls. Gets on there. It's I think 9:30 her time, so it's fantastic. It's the end of her workday. She's had her supper, she's settled, and she can just really totally get in and absorb what's going on, and it's super fantastic. So you don't need to be in Canada, the US, continental, because it works all ends. If the timings of that don't work, I still do one-on-one coaching with people. You don't need to be in a group. If there's some other time zone that works better for you, that's 7 a.m. for me. Sure, like I'm up. I can rearrange my workout schedule so that I see you first and we work through what's working with you, because I have that flexibility. Now, 3 a.m., I may not do that because I walked away from medicine and those on-call hours.
Right.
But I'm sure we can figure out a time that's mutually convenient so that we can talk and see what would work to help you out, because I love it. I love being able to help people. It's just, it brings me joy when they have that joy. It's just raises the whole vibe of what's going on in the world and helps make it a better place.
Oh, that's awesome, because I know we've got folks listening in Netherlands and England, Singapore, Australia.
Fantastic.
So there, hopefully you'll get some more global exposure to all the good work you're doing.
I just want people to know that there's more that they can do when they think that they've done everything. Well, I know I'm tooting my own horn, but if you haven't talked to me, you have nothing to lose of getting on the phone for 15 to 20 minutes. As I said, it often ends up being 30, to see what there's something I can do. From that, we usually have a second phone call to dive deep if that really is a connection piece that you really, really want to explore. So you can have a couple of chats with me, and we can really dive deep into what's going to work for you. And maybe it's not me, but maybe I have a pearl of something that will help you that's different. And I'm happy to serve that way as well. It's just, it's my calling, and I just love to do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Feels my calling.
That's awesome. And Karen, I've had you on for a while. Give us the name of that website again, and I'll be sure to put all those different phone numbers and everything into the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it's the Baby Making Genius. Not that I'm the baby making genius. I'm helping you waken your baby making genius. And on that website, there's a link to cut to the chase, get on a 15-minute phone call with me. Let's just see who you are, what's going on, see if there's a connection there, and then we can have a deep dive conversation from that. Or you can reach out on Instagram, Believe to Conceive. Yeah, IEEI, sorry. So make sure you spell that right. Believe to Conceive. Put it in a Word document first if you can't find me. And but I do have my pictures so that my avatar is me, so you find me. And my WhatsApp is 1-613-314-9802.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And thank you so much for being on the Cool Grandpa podcast and talking to us about this important issue.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
Thank you. Well, my dad is the greatest grandpa. We have so much fun. He's just turned 85 earlier this week, and the kids and I are going down in 2 weeks to visit him so we can have fun, celebrate his wonderful life, and play lots of cards, because that's what we do with Granddad. It's a fun time.
Yeah, well, and just as a little tease, you are going to be back on where we're going to be talking about your granddads and your dad and all that relationship stuff. So that'll be something for folks to look forward to.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to that as well, because, yeah, granddads are fun.
Yeah.
Granddads are fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Greg.
I thought it was great how Karen opened up to us about her own challenges with becoming pregnant and having 2 great kids. It was awesome to hear about her experience, her passion for learning all different ways to help women with their fertility issues. Now, one of the big things that I loved hearing too was how grandfathers and fathers can be part of that support team to help our daughters and our daughter-in-laws through some of the challenges that they may be facing when it comes to having babies. It's one of those things where sometimes I think as guys, we don't always know what to say, how to say it, where our role in all of these types of things fit. And so I really appreciate Karen sharing with us how we can be part of that support network and how we can lend our own thoughts and feelings and our leadership to what's going on with the family. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and especially share this with people that you might know within your network that could use some of the valuable information that Dr. Karen Stillman from Baby Making Genius shared with us. And I want to remind you, until next week, I want you to stay cool.